To prepare for the wedding, I had readied a dowry worth millions, even transferring the 3 million startup funds he lacked for his business directly into his account in advance. At the entrance of the city hall, he clutched his ID but suddenly spoke up. "I've found my first love. We can't get this license. I have to take responsibility for her." I didn't argue or make a scene, just pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and said with a smile, "It's fine. Go chase your true love." The next second, he received a bank text. The startup funds were frozen. The dowry account worth millions was closed, and even the wedding car he was driving was taken away on the spot by the driver I had arranged. Clutching his empty ID, he finally realized that what he had let go wasn't just a wedding, but all the security I was willing to provide for him. I, Emily Wilson, stood on the steps outside the city hall. The April sunlight felt deceptively warm, like how John Brown had whispered in my ear just yesterday. "Emily, marrying you is the greatest blessing of my life." I held 2 red booklets in my hand, not the marriage certificates themselves, but the warm covers I had just bought to take commemorative photos with. I had even carefully pasted the photos we picked out together last night inside. In the picture, he smiled with pure happiness, his arm tightly around me. Now, looking back, that smile must have hidden so much distraction. Today, he wore the custom-tailored suit I had ordered for him, his hair perfectly combed. He truly looked the part of a gentleman. No wonder I had fallen for him so hard back then. "Emily." He turned to face me, his voice tight and his eyes avoiding mine. "I have something I need to tell you right now." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept an expectant smile on my face. "What is it?" "Nervous." "It's okay. I am too." "Not nervous." He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for a huge decision. "I've found Sophia." Sophia. Sophia Taylor. That name felt like an icy needle, piercing my heart without warning. She was his first love from college, someone he had loved but couldn't have, becoming an eternal scar on his heart. She was also the name he would murmur drunkenly in the early days of our relationship. I had naively thought it was just a youthful fantasy. So, my voice turned cold without me realizing it. She's not doing well." "Not at all." A look of pain and resolve, one I had never seen before, crossed John's face. "She's divorced, raising a child alone, and it's really tough. She needs me." The sunlight stung my eyes. I looked at him and asked, slowly and deliberately, "So, what are you saying?" He avoided my gaze, staring at the ground, his voice soft yet thundering in my ears. "I'm sorry, Emily. This license, we can't get it today. I have to take responsibility for Sophia." Responsibility. Responsibility for his rediscovered first love. But who would take responsibility for me? For my 3 years of effort. For the future I had meticulously planned. For the 3 million I transferred to his card, which was supposed to launch his dream tomorrow. Around us, couples coming and going to register glowed with happiness. Only here, the atmosphere had plunged to freezing point. I could even hear hushed whispers from people nearby. "What's wrong? Are they arguing? Looks like the man changed his mind." TSK. Right at the finish line, a huge wave of shame and anger washed over me like a tsunami, almost drowning me. But I, Emily Wilson, have never been a little girl who panics at the first sign of trouble. I dug my fingernails into my palm, using the pain to hold on to my last shred of clarity and composure. I looked at him. At this man I'd poured my heart into loving for 3 years, even going so far as to tap the family trust fund to back his startup. Watching him now, agonized and torn over another woman, yet utterly resolute. How laughable. I slowly unclenched my tightly gripped hands. Along with them, I released the 2 red, mocking covers of the marriage certificates. They fluttered down lightly onto the steps. I didn't shout or make a scene. Instead, a faint, icy smile slowly spread across my face. "Oh, it's Sophia Taylor." My calmness clearly caught him off guard. He looked up, startled. "It's fine," I said with a laugh, my voice unnaturally bright. "Go chase your true love." Under his bewildered gaze, I elegantly pulled out my phone from my clutch bag, unlocked the screen, opened that specific banking app. My fingertips were cold but steady as a rock. "I wish you get your heart's desire." I tapped a few buttons gently. Then, as if finishing a simple ritual, I slipped the phone back into my bag. The whole thing took mere seconds. Almost instantly, a sharp ping, not a ringtone. But the alert for a text message sounded from John Brown's pocket, specifically set for notifications of large money transfers. He instinctively fished out his phone, took one glance. His face instantly went ghostly white, paler than the expensive dress shirt he wore. He snapped his head up to stare at me, eyes wide with disbelief, terror, and panic. "Emily, what did you do?" I tilted my head slightly, my smile still poised. "Nothing. Just reclaiming what belongs to the Wilson family, including that wedding car you've grown so fond of driving." As soon as I spoke, a uniformed driver with white gloves appeared out of nowhere, smoothly opened the car door, and slid into that brand new black sedan still decked with ribbons. The engine roared to life. The car traced a graceful arc in front of us and sped off into the distance, leaving only John behind, like a puppet with its strings cut, still clutching the now useless empty marriage certificate. Missing my page, he stood rooted to the spot, enduring the increasingly dense, curious, and disdainful gazes around me. He opened his mouth as if wanting to say something, but not a single word came out. His expression shifted from initial shock to later anger, and now, complete confusion and fear. I looked at him one last time, my gaze calm and unruffled, like looking at a stranger. Then, I turned around, stepped on my 7-centimeter high heels, and walked steadily down the steps of the marriage registry office. One step at a time. The sunlight fell on me again, warmth dispelling the previous chill. I knew that from this moment on, his John Brown's world began to turn upside down. And all of this had only just begun. I didn't look back. The sound of high heels clicking on the ground echoed exceptionally clearly in the empty parking lot. Every step felt like bidding farewell to a foolish past. Behind me, John's hoarse shouting seemed to drift over, muffled and indistinct, probably calling my name. But why should I stop? To listen to him explain how he painfully struggled between his responsibility toward me and toward Sophia Taylor, or to hear him confess, begging me to spare him a way out for the sake of past affection. Ridiculous. He chose to deal me a fatal blow at the entrance of the marriage registry office, at the last step before the marriage hall. When had he ever thought of sparing me a way out? What he abandoned wasn't just a wedding. It was me, Emily Wilson, and all the confidence the Wilson family could provide for him, which he had always dreamed of. Now, I was just withdrawing this confidence bit by bit. This is called stripping away layer by layer. I got into another low-key black car waiting by the roadside. The driver respectfully asked, "Miss, going home?" "To the company," I replied, leaning back in the comfortable leather seat and closing my eyes. My voice showed no trace of emotion, as if the woman who had just experienced a devastating betrayal at the marriage registry office wasn't me. My phone started vibrating frantically. I didn't need to look to know who it was. John probably finally snapped out of the initial shock. He might think that the freezing of the 3 Lion startup funds was just my momentary anger. He might think that as long as he humbled himself and coaxed me, I would soften like before. After all, for the past 3 years, I had indeed granted his every request. When he lacked connections for his startup, I used my father's network. When his company lacked funds, I didn't hesitate to take out my own savings. Even when his relatives from his hometown came to the city for medical treatment, I was the one running around to contact hospital specialists. He had probably grown accustomed to Emily's selfless dedication. So accustomed that he forgot that first and foremost, I am a daughter of the Wilson family. And only then his fiancée. A daughter of the Wilson family can love passionately but also leave resolutely. The phone vibrated for a while, then stopped. Then it rang again stubbornly. It seemed he was really anxious. I opened my eyes and picked up my phone. The name flashing on the screen was indeed John Brown. I pressed the power button directly. The world instantly became quiet. Now he's anxious. What was he doing earlier? The car was driving smoothly on the overpass. The city scenery flew by outside the window. I opened the tablet I carried with me and started handling work emails. As if everything just now was just an insignificant farce. Emotions, that kind of thing, in the face of decisive victory, seems superfluous and ridiculous. When I finished handling a few urgent emails, the car had already parked in the exclusive underground parking spot of the Wilson Group headquarters. I took the private elevator directly to the CEO's office on the top floor. My father, Mr. Robert Wilson, was sitting behind a large desk reading documents. Seeing me come in, he was a bit surprised. "Emily, aren't you supposed to be with John today?" He didn't finish his sentence, keenly noticing that my expression was off, and put down the documents. "What happened?" I walked over and sat down opposite him, poured myself a glass of water, and took a sip. The water temperature was just right. "Didn't get it done," I said, putting down the glass. My tone as calm as if talking about the weather. Father frowned. "What happened? Did that kid change his mind?" "Yes." I nodded. "His first love, Sophia Taylor, got divorced and needs him to take responsibility. So, he decided not to be responsible to me. His fiancée. Bastard." Father slammed the table angrily. "How dare he treat you like this? Does he think the Wilson family has no one?" Father's anger was within my expectations. He had never been very satisfied with John, who came from an ordinary background but was somewhat impatient for success. It was me who was blinded by so-called love back then. Stubbornly insisting on being with him, Father couldn't persuade me otherwise. So he reluctantly accepted it and later provided considerable support. Now it seems the old are wiser. "Dad, don't be angry," I comforted him instead. "It's not worth it for such a person." "What did you do?" Father took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions, and asked me. I knew what he was asking. "Froze that $3 million startup fund. Cancelled all the accounts and assets under my name that were prepared as a dowry. Had the car driven back too." I paused, then added, "Right at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau." After he said that to me, Father was stunned for a moment. Then, a complex expression appeared on his face, with heartache, and even a trace of imperceptible admiration. He knows his daughter. I am not the kind of fragile woman who cries and collapses at the slightest setback. "You did the right thing," Robert Wilson said firmly. "Not a shred of the Wilson family's belongings should go to such an ungrateful wretch. John Brown has the backbone to pursue true love, doesn't he? Then let him rely on himself." He stood up, walked over to me, and patted my shoulder. "Emily, I'm sorry you had to go through this. Don't worry. Robert has your back. If John dares to harass you, I'll make him pay." I shook my head. "Robert, this is my business. I'll handle it myself. Please don't interfere. I want to see it with my own eyes. See how he falls from being a proud groomtobe, step by step back into the mire he came from. Even deeper. And this is just the beginning." Although my phone was turned off, my assistant called, using the company landline. I answered. "Ms. Wilson." The assistant's voice hesitated. "Mr. John is at the front desk downstairs. Very agitated. Demanding to see you immediately. The security guards are holding him back." But I walked to the large floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the bustling traffic below. Though unclear, I could imagine John's current state of disarray and anxiety. "Tell him," I said into the phone, my voice devoid of warmth. In not here. Also, if he comes again in the future, have security escort him out immediately. Wilson Group does not welcome unauthorized personnel. Yes. Ms. Wilson. After hanging up, I looked at my clear reflection in the glass. Perfect makeup. Icy gaze. Emily Wilson. Awake. The game. Rules changed. John. Are you ready? In the following days, it was calm. At least, in my world it was. I went to work, attended meetings, reviewed documents as usual. As if John had never existed in my life. That meticulously planned wedding was naturally cancelled. Robert stepped in and notified all relatives and friends with a very appropriate reason, preserving the Wilson family's dignity. As for any gossip in private, I don't care. True strength comes from inner stability, not external opinions. But I know, in John's world, it must be turmoil. According to my assistant, he comes to the Wilson Group building almost every day to block me. From anxious explanations at first, to angry accusations later, to near begging. Security strictly enforces my orders. He can't even enter the gate. He started calling my phone incessantly. I blocked all his contact information. Then he used others' phones to call. At first, I would still answer, to hear what he wanted to say. As expected, it was nothing but the same old lines. Emily Wilson. Listen to my explanation. Sophia Taylor and I are not what you think. I just felt sorry for her. I couldn't stand by and watch her suffer. My feelings for you are genuine, but we haven't officially registered our marriage yet. So I have the right to pursue true love. Right. That $3 million is seed funding, critical to our company's future. You can't be this unreasonable. You froze the funds. What about my company? What about the employees waiting for their paychecks? Emily Wilson. You're too cruel. Are you trying to drive me to death? By the end, I couldn't even muster a cold smile. I hung up directly and dragged this new number into the blacklist. It seemed he hadn't truly realized what had lost. Or rather, he was still deluding himself that I was just throwing a temporary tantrum and would come around eventually. After all, over the past 3 years, I'd been too good to him. So good that he developed the illusion he could squander it wantonly. Until a week later, I attended a business gala. On such occasions, I used to occasionally bring John Brown along to help him expand his network. Today, I was alone, wearing a navy blue floor-length gown, mingling effortlessly among various business elites, chatting and laughing with ease, until a familiar yet disheveled figure burst into my view. John Brown had actually found his way here. He was wearing the same suit Head had on when we went to the city hall, but now it was crumpled. His tie askew, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. He looked utterly haggard and downcast. He clearly didn't have an invitation and had been stopped by the doorman. But when he saw me, like a drowning man spotting a lifeline, he charged over desperately. Emily, Emily. His shouts shattered the elegant and harmonious atmosphere of the gala. Everyone's gaze focused on us, filled with curiosity, scrutiny, and a hint of schadenfreude. Holding my champagne flute, I slowly turned around and watched him rush up to me. Emily, I finally see you. He was panting heavily, trying to grab my arm. I took a slight step back, avoiding his touch. My gaze was distant and cold. Mr. Brown, is there something? I spoke lightly. This form of address clearly made him stiffen. Soft murmurs arose around us. Mr. Brown. Didn't we hear before that Miss Wilson was going to marry him? Looks like they've broken up. How did he end up like this? Like a homeless person. Those gazes and whispers pierced John like needles. His face flushed and then paled. Emily Wilson, don't do this. He lowered his voice, tinged with a plea. Let's find a quiet place to talk. Okay, I'm begging you. Well, talk right here. I swirled the champagne in my glass, my tone unyielding. I have nothing to hide. He choked up, staring at me, his eyes brimming with pain and conflict. Okay. Okay. He drew a deep breath, as if bracing himself. Emily, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things outside the marriage license office. I'm a jerk. I'm not human. He began slapping himself. Not hard, but loud enough. In the hushed cocktail party, it rang out sharply, causing a slight stir. But I was out of my mind then. Sophia Taylor, she was in a terrible state. Told me if I didn't go to her, she wouldn't make it. I couldn't just abandon her. He wept openly, trying to win sympathy. Emily, you've always been the kindest. You understand me, right? Moral blackmail. Using Sophia Taylor's fragility to highlight my strength and unreasonableness. I smiled, took a small sip of champagne. So, you chose to be responsible for her and gave up on being responsible for me. That's your choice. I respect it. I set down the glass, gazing at him calmly. Then, why are you coming to me now? Is it that Sophia Taylor doesn't need your responsibility anymore? Or, have you realized you can't handle it? My words, like a sharp knife, sliced through his hypocritical facade. His expression shifted abruptly. His eyes darted away, avoiding mine. Clearly, ID struck a nerve. Later, I learned Sophia Taylor's divorce was indeed real. She had a child. And life was tough. All true. She reached out to John Brown, pouring out her woes and struggles, stirring John's protective instincts and unresolved youthful feelings. Also true. But when John actually called off the engagement, showed up at her door with nothing, and vowed to care for her forever, reality hit. Sophia Taylor wasn't some naive dreamer. She wanted a capable man with financial stability to lean on, not a broke guy who'd just botched his wedding, angered his wealthy future father-in-law, had his startup funds frozen, and his company teetering on bankruptcy. John's responsibility, stripped of the Wilson family's prestige and financial backing, became worthless. Sophia Taylor's attitude toward him was predictable. Cold, distant, even evasive. That was the cruelest irony. Had given up everything for so-called true love. Upon realization, that so-called true love might not have been for him at all, but rather for the value attached to him as Emily Wilson's fiancé. Now that the value was gone, the love vanished. No, Emily, listen to me. John Brown tried to defend himself, stammering incoherently. Sophia Taylor and I. It's not. I love you. I've always loved you. I was just bewitched back then. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. So, you've snapped out of your bewitchment now. Realized that I, Emily Wilson, am more valuable. My words were cutting and blunt, like a sharp slap across his face. Far heavier than the ones had given himself earlier. His face instantly flushed crimson. The gazes of those around shifted from curiosity to disdain. So that's what happened. Dumped his fiancée for an ex-lover. Found out the ex-lover was unreliable. And now wants to get back together. Even set his sights on the Wilson family. What a hypocrite. Miss Wilson has such grace. If it were me, I'd have thrown a drink in his face long ago. The murmurs grew louder. John stood isolated in the center, enduring the piercing stares from all directions. He had probably never felt so humiliated in his life. Emily, please, give me another chance. He sobbed almost incoherently, lowering himself to the dust. Without you, without that money, my company is truly finished. It's all my life's work. Look, he finally revealed his true motive. Not love for me, not remorse. It was his company, his life's work. Your company, your life's work. I repeated his words, my voice clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. What does that have to do with me, Emily Wilson? With that, I ignored his despair-twisted face. Turning around, I offered an apologetic smile to the somewhat flustered host of the party. Sorry, Mr. Wang, for disrupting everyone's enjoyment. I have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave now. Then, amidst the sympathetic, admiring or voyeuristic gazes of the crowd. I departed calmly. Behind me, John's cries of complete breakdown echoed, but were quickly silenced by security. I knew this was just the beginning of his journey through hell. That slap of public humiliation, how did it taste? John. After that party incident, John seemed to have shed the last shred of pretense. He no longer tried to maintain that pitiful self-respect. He started harassing me in every imaginable and unimaginable way. Since he couldn't enter the Wilson building, he camped out at the entrance all day. As soon as my car pulled out, he'd recklessly dash in front of it, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes in panic. He'd press his face against the window, distorted and yelling my name, Emily Wilson, babbling apologies, drawing stares from passers-by. I told the driver to call the police immediately. Officers arrived, gave him warnings and lectures, and he acted submissive, but the moment they left, he'd reappear like a ghost. He even somehow got hold of my parents' address and started lurking day and night outside our gated community villa. Security guards chased him off countless times, but he never learned his lesson. He turned to manipulating public opinion, posting vague rants on local forums and social media, accusing a rich heiress of bullying an entrepreneur, heartlessly crushing a young innovator. He painted himself as a victim of elite oppression, a talented soul held back, while portraying me as the gold-digging, vindictive ex-girlfriend who destroyed him over one bad judgment call. But he underestimated the Wilson family's PR power and overestimated how mindlessly followers would swallow his story. The posts gained slight traction before being swiftly scrubbed. Instead, insiders came forward with the truth about what happened at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The backlash overwhelmingly mocked him as the king of entitlement and a hypocrite through and through, turning his pity party into a joke both inside and outside the circle. Still, he wouldn't quit, clinging like sticky gum or an unshakable fly. No, calling him a fly was too generous. More like a mangy dog stripped of all dignity, thrashing on pure instinct. One day, I met an important client for lunch at a high-end restaurant. After wrapping up, I headed to the underground parking garage to get my car. Just as I reached it, a dark figure darted out from behind a pillar. It was John Brown again. He looked even more down and out than at the last gala, unshaven, eyes sunken, reeking of sour neglect. Gone was any trace of the confident, brilliant young man he once was. Emily. He lunged to grab my hand. I dodged back, hitting the car key. It beeped unlocked. What do you want? I stared coldly. My patience gone. Emily. I'm sorry. I truly know I messed up. He dropped to his knees on the concrete floor. Others in the garage froze, gawking and murmuring, "Please, forgive me this once. Just this once." He buried his head, voice cracking with tears. My company's collapsing. Suppliers are hounding me for debts daily. I can't even pay employees. The bank's calling in loans. Without that seed money, I'm finished. He punctuated each word by thumping his forehead against the ground, not hard, but loud and rhythmic. It was Sophia Taylor, that bitch, who deceived me. She said she couldn't live without me. It was all lies. When she saw I had no money, she turned her back on me. Emily Wilson. I was deceived by her. I am the victim. He started shifting all the blame onto Sophia, clearing himself of any responsibility, as if the man who swore at the courthouse door to take responsibility for his true love was not him. Oh, I leaned against the car door, arms crossed, looking down at his performance condescendingly. So, now you regret choosing the wrong investment target. Think that I, Emily, am a better pawn to use. My words poured over his head like ice water. He lifted his head, his face covered in snot and tears, mixed with dirt from the ground, filthy beyond measure. No, that's not what I meant, Emily. I love you. It's always been you from start to finish. He pleaded urgently, kneeling and shuffling forward a few steps, trying to hug my leg. I dodged away in disgust. Love, I sneered. John Brown. Your love is so cheap. It can be given away easily, taken back easily, and adjusted any time based on the other person's value. No. Believe me. He roared, his eyes wild. Just help me this once. Let me get through this crisis. And I'll repay you by working like an ox or a horse. I'll be your slave. I'll do anything you say. Slave. Is he worthy? Does my Wilson family lack slaves? John. The first put away the sarcasm on my face, my tone becoming extremely serious. Look clearly. And listen carefully. I enunciated each word slowly, ensuring every syllable hit his ears clearly. I, Emily, have not the slightest feeling for you left, only disgust and nausea. Whether your company lives or dies, it's none of my business. Whether you live or die, even less my concern. Even if you die in front of me today, I wouldn't bat an eye. Instead, I'd feel, finally, peace and quiet. His body trembled violently. His face turned ashen, as if all his strength had been drained. He collapsed to the ground. His eyes were empty, as if his faith had crumbled. Why? Why are you so cruel? He murmured to himself, as if asking me, or asking himself. I opened the car door, sat in the driver's seat. The engine rumbled with a low growl. Before leaving, I rolled down the window and said one last thing to the pile of mud on the ground. John, don't come looking for me again. Keep this for myself. Save the last shred of dignity. The car drove out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, that figure grew smaller and smaller, eventually disappearing into the darkness. I knew he wouldn't give up. The reason a despicable person is despicable is because they have no bottom line. But my methods go far beyond this. This is just an appetizer. The main course hasn't even been served yet. John Brown's despicable behavior, or was already well known in the circle. It became a laughingstock during people's casual conversations. But there are always some people who habitually sympathize with the underdog, blindly taking sides without understanding the full picture, especially when this underdog is good at acting. I don't know how John persuaded those few remaining old employees at his company. Maybe with empty promises like once the company gets through this tough time, I'll give everyone a raise. Or by exploiting their lingering loyalty. One morning, I drove to the Wilson building. From afar, I saw a small group gathered at the entrance. About 7 or 8 people, holding a white banner. On it, written in bright red characters, Wilson family heiress Emily Wilson, driving a startup to death. Where is justice? Pay debts. Freezing funds is no different from robbery and murder. Return our hard-earned money. Return our jobs. They were employees of John's company. John himself was hiding in a corner not far away, sneakily peering over. Clearly, this was a new act he directed, trying to use public pressure to force me to yield. Unfortunately, the method was too crude. Seeing my car approach, those employees, at John's signal, immediately surrounded it, blocking the entrance to the building, shouting slogans, banging hard on my car window. Emily, come out. Give us an explanation. You can't do whatever you want just because you're rich. Return our hard-earned money. The scene became chaotic for a moment. The building security quickly intervened, trying to disperse the crowd. But those people were emotional and started shoving. Passers-by began to gather, some taking out phones to take pictures. Seeing this, John felt the timing was right. He ran out from the corner, looking heartbroken, stood in front of his employees, and shouted at my car, Emily, whatever it is, come at me. Don't trouble my employees. They're innocent. I know you hate me. But the company is everyone's hard work. You can't make so many people lose their homes just because of our personal issues. I beg you. Show mercy. Let us go. He put on a great show, portraying himself as a caring boss who endures humiliation for his employees. And I was the venomous woman whose love turned to hate, harming innocent bystanders. Uninformed onlookers started pointing fingers. What's going on? This woman looks quite beautiful. Why is she so cruel? Seems she froze her ex-boyfriend's company funds, forcing his employees to lose their jobs. TSK. The rich are really untouchable. After a breakup, they have to destroy the other person. The court of public opinion seemed to start tilting in the direction he desired. In John Brown's eyes, a flicker of barely noticeable satisfaction flashed. He probably thought that under the pressure of being in full view of everyone, to protect the Wilson family's reputation, I would at least come out and talk to him. As long as I was willing to talk, he had a chance. Unfortunately, he was wrong again. I sat in the car, calmly watching the commotion outside the window. I even had the mood to touch up my lipstick. Then, I pushed the car door open and stepped out. As soon as I got out, the noisy employees quieted down for a moment. They were probably intimidated by my calm demeanor. I swept my gaze over them, finally landing on John. "Finished your performance?" I asked coolly. John was startled by my question, then put on that same aggrieved expression again. "Emily Wilson. In not performing, I'm truly out of options. These employees have been with me for so many years. I can't just watch them." "Shut up." I cut him off, my voice not loud but carrying undeniable authority. He instinctively closed his mouth. I turned to the employees holding up banners, my tone calm. "You're saying I froze your hard-earned money?" A leading employee gathered his courage and said, "Isn't that true?" "Mr. John said the startup funds for our company were frozen by you, causing the company to fail to pay salaries and halt projects." "Startup funds," I repeated, then laughed. "Did your Mr. John tell you whose money that $3 million in startup funds was?" The employees exchanged glances. Looking at John, John's face turned grim. "That money was transferred from my personal account, Emily's, to John's personal account the day before we were supposed to get our marriage license," I stated clearly. "It was a premarital gift. Now that the marriage isn't happening, I'm reclaiming my personal gift completely legal and compliant." "Any problem with that?" The employees froze. They clearly hadn't known this inside story. "As for your company's operational status," I continued, my voice carrying through the quiet scene, "from what I know, even before freezing this money, John's company had been losing money for months due to poor management. Whether or not I had that $3 million, the outcome wouldn't have been much different. He's pushing all the blame for the company's bankruptcy onto me, his ex-girlfriend, just to find a scapegoat and cover up his own incompetence." "You're lying," John retorted heatedly. "It was clearly you freezing the funds that caused." "Do I need to retrieve your company's financial reports from the past year and make them public?" I stared coldly at him. "Let everyone see who's really lying. Who drove a perfectly good company to the brink of bankruptcy?" John looked as if he'd been choked, his face turning bright red, unable to utter a word. The employees looked at me, then at John, seeming to understand something. The anger in their eyes gradually shifted to doubt and disappointment. Finally, I turned to the onlookers, raising my voice slightly to ensure everyone could hear. "Everyone. Personal relationships are private matters and shouldn't consume public resources. But since things have escalated to this point today, I might as well make things clear. Mr. John Brown and I have ended our engagement due to a breakdown in our relationship. All related financial transactions have been handled legally and properly. As for the operational issues with his company, they have nothing to do with me, Emily, or the Wilson family. If anyone tries to use public opinion to smear or blackmail me personally or the Wilson family." I paused, my gaze sharp as I scanned the crowd. "The Wilson family's legal department is ready to take it on at any time." After saying that, I ignored everyone else and, under the protection of the security guards, walked straight to the entrance of the building. Behind me, there was a deathly silence, along with John Brown's furious, futile shouts. But no one paid attention to him anymore. The employees silently put away the banners, exchanged glances, and gradually dispersed. The onlookers also scattered while discussing, their words turning into mockery of John. After all this time, it turns out he's incompetent and still wants to blame his ex-girlfriend. He's really thick-skinned. It's fortunate no one married such a man. Emily Wilson is tough. Well done. A carefully orchestrated public shaming. I easily turned it around. Instead, he became an even bigger joke. I entered the elevator, and the mirrored door reflected my cold expression. John, do you think this is over? No. You embarrassed me in public once. I will make you pay for it with the rest of your life. This is just the beginning. After John's failed public shaming, things quieted down for a while. It is said that his already shaky company finally declared bankruptcy and liquidation. Suppliers sued, banks demanded debts, and the employees scattered like rats from a sinking ship. He himself not only incurred massive debts but may also face legal risks. Rumors suggest he wasn't entirely clean in the company's accounting. I learned all this through my assistant's reports. I didn't go out of my way to kick him while he was down, because it wasn't necessary. The bitter fruit he sowed is enough for him to savor slowly. I was just a quiet observer. Occasionally, I received unexpected surprises. For example, a stranger contacted me for a meeting. She introduced herself as Sophia Taylor. I was curious about who this first love was. Who had John's so infatuated head give up everything? We met at a quiet cafe. When I arrived, she was already there, seated by the window, wearing a simple dress with light makeup, her demeanor carrying a touch of pitiable fragility. No wonder a chauvinist like John would feel a strong urge to protect her. Seeing me, she stood up immediately, looking awkward and nervous. Hello, Emily. I'm Sophia, she said softly, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her dress. Sit. I nodded faintly, taking a seat across from her and ordering an Americano. After the waiter left, the atmosphere grew subtly tense. She stole glances at me, her eyes complex filled with curiosity, envy, and perhaps a trace of hidden jealousy. I calmly accepted her scrutiny, showing no reaction. Emily, I came to see you today, to apologize. She gathered her courage and spoke, her voice still thin. Apologize. I raised an eyebrow. For whom? For John. Is it still for yourself? She was stunned for a moment, and her face flushed slightly. For myself, Anne. And for John. If it weren't for me, you guys wouldn't have. Whether we break up or not doesn't have much to do with you. I interrupted her, speaking calmly. The root cause lies with John himself. He lacks determination and is indecisive. He wants both the passionate love and his first love. Even if there weren't you, Sophia, there would be someone else. My words seemed to take her by surprise. She stared blankly at me. So, you don't need to apologize for him, let alone feel guilty. I stirred my coffee. Just tell me directly. What do you want from me? She lowered her head and was silent for a while. When she looked up again, there was more determination in her eyes. Ms. Emily, I know it might sound ridiculous for me to say this now, but could you help John? This really surprised me. Help John, coming from his so-called true love. Oh, I put down the coffee spoon, leaned back slightly, and looked at her. How? He's really in a terrible state now. Sophia's eyes were red. He lost his company, owes a lot of debt. He's mortgaged his house and car and is being chased by creditors every day. He's lost so much weight. I heard he might even go to jail. As she spoke, her voice choked with sobs. So, I still showed no expression. Isn't this just what he deserves? Yes, he deserves it. Sophia suddenly got excited and raised her voice. He's stupid. He's an idiot. He believed such nonsense for my sake. He deserves what's happening to him today. Her reaction was quite interesting, but she changed the subject and returned to her weak-looking self. Ms. Emily, you two had a 3-year relationship after all. As the saying goes, A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness. Can you really bear to watch him go to the end of his rope? He's really on the verge of collapse now. Ms. Sophia. I looked at her and said slowly, if John hadn't gone bankrupt and had no debts today, if he were still my fiancé, or if he had successfully been with you, with a successful career and in the limelight, would you still come to me and ask me to help him? Sophia's face instantly turned as pale as a sheet. Her lips trembled. And she couldn't say a word. The answer was obvious. She wouldn't. Her coming here today was hardly a plea for John. Rather, it was John Brown. This enormous trouble that latched onto her, making her unbearably disturbed and even afraid of being implicated. So, she wanted to push this trouble back to me, hoping I would take over this mess out of old feelings and make John stop bothering her. Truly, she played a clever game. Sophia Taylor. I stood up, picked up my handbag, looking down at her condescendingly. You and John are truly a perfect match. Both equally selfish, equally calculating, equally disgusting. Please tell John, the first said, looking into her instantly widened eyes, word by word. Clearly, I couldn't care less about his life or death. If he harasses me again through anyone, in any way, I wouldn't mind making him 10 times worse off than he is now. I mean it. After saying that, I left the coffee money and turned to leave. Stepping out of the cafe, the sun was shining brightly. I took a deep breath, feeling the air much fresher. It seemed that John had not only become a persistent pest to me but to his first love. He had also become a plague to be avoided at all costs. Abandoned by everyone. Lost everything. Doesn't this feeling seem familiar? Back when he abandoned me without hesitation at the Civil Affairs Bureau door. Did he ever imagine today? This is just the interest. The principal. I haven't started collecting yet. After that, John seemed to truly disappear from my world. No more harassing calls. No more door-blocking incidents. Even scattered news about him gradually faded away, as if this person had never existed. I enjoyed the peace. Pouring all my energy into work. An overseas merger and acquisition project at Wilson Family was at a critical stage, and I was frequently traveling, busy as a bee, until 3 months later. The project was finally successfully signed. I returned from abroad with my team in a good mood. The plane landed. I turned on my phone. A series of unread text messages and app notifications popped up. Most were work-related, but among them, there was a long text message from an unknown number, sent late last night. I was about to delete it directly as usual, but on a whim, I opened it. Emily Wilson, I know you hate me deeply. I'm too ashamed to see you again. You probably won't even read this message. And if you do, you'll delete it immediately. But I still wanted to send it to you. As if. It's my final confession. It was John. His tone had an unnatural calmness, carrying a despairing lifelessness. I'm finished. Truly finished. The company went into bankruptcy liquidation. Insolvent. And am suspected of embezzlement. Sued. House. Car. Everything gone. And saddled with millions in debt. Creditors come to threaten me every day. My mom got so angry she was hospitalized. I am currently hiding in a small motel in the suburbs that costs only a few $dozen a day. Not even daring to step outside. The words are filled with heavy decadence and despair. I know. This is the retribution I deserve. I shouldn't have betrayed you. Shouldn't have abandoned you at the last moment. Emily Wilson. For the past 3 months, I've regretted it every single day. Wishing I could go back in time and strangle that version of myself who spouted nonsense at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Sophia Taylor. She blocked me long ago, and I heard she moved away. Maybe it's for the best. I can't drag anyone else down with me. Sometimes I think life just isn't worth living. Maybe death would be a release. Reading this, I frowned. Playing the victim. Seeking sympathy. Using suicide to threaten me. He's still resorting to such low tactics. I forced myself to keep reading. But am not trying to threaten you with death. Really am not. I just want to say I'm sorry. Sorry, Emily, for betraying your 3 years of deep affection. Sorry for destroying our future with my own hands. Sorry for causing you so much trouble and pain. If time could rewind, well, there's no if in this world. I wish you all the best, happiness, and peace. Farewell. The text ends there. No pleading, no guilt tripping, just confession and goodbye. But that made me uneasy. This isn't like John Brown's style, with his dogged persistence. Would he give up so easily? Choose farewell. I pondered for a moment, then called my assistant. Check on John Brown's recent situation. Is he really caught up in a lawsuit? Did his mother get hospitalized? My assistant was efficient, calling back half an hour later. Ms. Wilson. I've got it. John's company did go through bankruptcy liquidation. He's been sued by shareholders for alleged embezzlement. And the case is under trial. All his assets are frozen. And he owes a lot of debt. His mother had a brain hemorrhage from high blood pressure a week ago. Was hospitalized for emergency treatment. And is still in the ICU with a grim prognosis. John himself is currently missing. And creditors are looking for him. Listening to the assistant's report, I stared at that long text on my phone. So, this wasn't a ploy. He's truly at the end of his rope. Bankrupt. Abandoned. Even his beloved mother fighting for her life. That text might really be his desperate, final cry for help. Or perhaps, it's a dying declaration. My heart stirred slightly. Not heartache, nor forgiveness, but a indescribable complex emotion. Someone who was once so proud. Someone I once loved dearly. Now fallen to such a state. Like a rat in the gutter. Unseen by daylight. Is this really what I wanted? I admit. I hate him. I want revenge. I want to see him learn a lesson. But, let him die. I never thought of wanting him dead. What I want is for him to live. To live bearing the cost of betrayal. To live experiencing the pain of falling from the clouds. To live watching everything that once belonged to him become irrelevant to him. Death is too easy for him. It's a release. And I don't want to give him that release. I want him to live long, consciously, in endless regret and pain. That is the cruelest punishment. Thinking this, I made a decision. I said to my assistant, find his current location. Contact the best lawyer to help him with that lawsuit. I'll cover the costs. Also, contact the hospital where his mother is. Pay off all medical expenses. Use the best medicine. Hire the best experts. The assistant on the other end of the phone was clearly stunned and hesitated. Asking, Ms. Wilson, are you helping him? Do as I say. I didn't explain. Remember, do it anonymously. Don't let him, or anyone, know that it was the Wilson family who did it. Yes. I understand. Hanging up the phone, I looked out the window at the busy airport scene. John Brown, I won't let you die. I want you to live. To enjoy the long life I've prepared for you. This is the most thorough revenge for you. I saved your life. But your soul will be forever imprisoned in the hell of regret. Never to be redeemed. John did not die. He had cut his wrist in the bathroom of that shabby motel. But the wound wasn't deep enough. Or rather, at the last moment. His survival instinct made him make the sound. Discovered by the motel owner. He was sent to the hospital. Saved in time. He survived. Meanwhile, some things he couldn't understand happened. The shareholders suing him suddenly softened their stance. Agreed to an out-of-court settlement with unbelievably favorable terms. The hospital notified him that an anonymous philanthropist had paid all the high medical expenses for his mother and brought in a top domestic expert team for consultation. Even those creditors who blocked the door every day, shouting and threatening, suddenly quieted down, giving him an unprecedented lenient repayment period. All of this, like manna from heaven, pulled him back from the brink of death. He lay on the hospital bed, looking at the long-lost sunlight outside the window. As if in a different world. He tried to find out who the benefactor was that had secretly helped him. But he found nothing. The lawyer kept his mouth shut. The hospital also said they had nothing to say. The creditors were tight-lipped. All clues pointed to a mysterious existence. A powerful, wealthy, yet deliberately hidden existence. Who could it be? He first thought of Emily Wilson, but then he dismissed it. Emily hated him to the core. After his last farewell message, she didn't even reply with a single word. How could it be her? She probably wished him dead. But if not her, who else? Among the people he knew, who else had such ability and willingness? Sophia Taylor. Even more impossible. He was utterly puzzled. This unfamiliar, sudden salvation didn't bring him much joy. Instead, it made him feel a deep unease and humiliation, as if his fate was being toyed with by an invisible hand. Even life and death were not under his control. After he was discharged from the hospital, his life seemed to temporarily return to a relatively stable, but extremely low level. After his mother's condition stabilized, she was brought home and needed long-term care. He found an ordinary job, barely making ends meet, slowly repaying debts. No more entrepreneurial ambitions. No more illusory dreams. He became taciturn and aged a lot. Occasionally, he would see news about Emily in business reports. The Wilson Group successfully acquired overseas companies, and its market value soared. As the project leader, Emily was radiant and spirited on the cover of financial magazines. Between us, there was already an insurmountable chasm that he could never cross. He watched Emily become more and more successful, more and more dazzling. Compared to his own destitution and humility, that regret gnawed at his heart like a poisonous insect. Day and night, he finally understood what he had let go of that day at the city hall door. Not a marriage, but a social class, a future that could have propelled him to great heights, the entire safety net that was willing to back him up. And now, all of this had become a mirage. Visible but unattainable. This sober realization tormented him more than poverty and debt. Sometimes he wondered if the benefactor who saved him was deliberately keeping him alive to endure this long, silent torment. If so, then this benefactor was even more ruthless than Emily. Time passed quietly. A year went by. Chapter 9. The 1-year anniversary of my breakup with John Brown. Of course, this day was probably only remembered by me. I deliberately cleared this day. In the morning, I visited a cemetery to pay respects to a deceased elder. In the afternoon, I had my driver take me for a drive, and unintentionally, we passed by the place where John Brown now lives, an old residential area on the city outskirts, with a noisy environment and dilapidated facilities. According to my assistant's report, John and his mother rent a 1-bedroom apartment here. His mother requires long-term medication and has limited mobility. John works every day and cares for his mother, living a routine life between 2 points. Like a soulless machine, our car slowly drove past the entrance of the complex. Coincidentally, or rather, unfortunately, I saw John returning from outside. He carried several plastic bags filled with cheap vegetables, his figure hunched, wearing faded work clothes, his face unable to hide the weariness and vicissitudes. In just a year, that once well-dressed, eloquent, promising young man had been completely worn down by life, stripped of all edges, transformed into a mediocre, numb middle-aged man. He seemed to sense something, looked up toward the car, and our eyes met for an instant. He froze in place as if struck by lightning. The plastic bags fell to the ground, potatoes and tomatoes scattering everywhere. He widened his eyes, staring fixedly at me. His gaze was filled with extremely complex emotions: shock, shame, inexpressible regret, and a lingering delusion he might not even be aware of himself. Through the tinted car window, I calmly watched him, my face expressionless, as if observing a complete stranger. Then, I softly said to my driver, Let's go. The car didn't pause for a moment. Accelerating away. In the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller, eventually becoming a blurred black dot. Was he still standing there? Was he reliving that fleeting glimpse? Was he still fantasizing that my appearance carried some deeper meaning? Let him be. I hope he likes this anniversary gift. That brief, silent encounter was more damaging than any verbal humiliation. It would recur repeatedly in his countless mediocre, difficult nights to come, reminding him how close he once was to a certain life, within reach. And what he destroyed with his own hands. That is the most cruel torture. Chapter 10. Another 6 months passed. I accepted a family-arranged blind date. The other party was the heir to another powerful family business, named Daniel Clark. We were well-matched in social status, compatible in temperament, and shared mutual admiration. After dating for half a year, we decided to get engaged. The news broke and became major headlines in the local business and entertainment sections. Major media outlets rushed to report it, calling it a powerful alliance and the engagement of the century. The engagement banquet was held at the city's most luxurious 7-star hotel. Celebrities gathered, wine glasses clinking, everything extremely luxurious. I wore a custom-designed gown by a famous designer and priceless jewelry. Arm in arm with Daniel, accepting everyone's blessings, my smile bright, radiating happiness. I know that in some corner, John Brown must have seen this news. Perhaps through the small TV in his shabby rented room. Perhaps through the financial newspapers on the convenience store magazine rack. He would see how glorious I am, how excellent Daniel Clark is, and how well-matched we are. For him, this is the final blow, completely severing all his unrealistic fantasies and plunging him into the abyss of despair. Sure enough, the day after the engagement party, my assistant told me that John tried to sneak into the hotel and was decisively escorted away by security. He was in a terrible state, as if he had drunk too much, mumbling and calling Emily, saying crazy things like it should have been me by her side and I regret it. It became a joke among the security guards during their idle chats. When I heard it, I just smiled faintly. Not even a ripple stirred within me. To me, he has long been a thing of the past. Later, I heard that John quit his job and, taking his mother whose health had slightly improved, left the city for a small, unknown place where no one recognizes him, completely disappearing into the crowd. Perhaps on some late night, he will wake up from a nightmare, remembering all he once possessed and lost. Perhaps when drunk, he will mutter to the air, pouring out regrets that no one understands. Perhaps for the rest of his life, he will live trapped in a self-woven cage of pain. But this has nothing to do with me anymore. My life has turned to a fresh new page, brimming with hope and sunshine. As for John, he has become a minor footnote in my life story. A reminder to never underestimate human nature and to always stay clear. Hadida cautionary tale. The dust has settled. My painful past has long extinguished its last wisp of smoke, while his hell stretches on endlessly.